Black billionaire watches homeless girl dance with his son. What happens next is a miracle. The first thing that caught his eye wasn't the girl, it was his son. The way Caleb lit up for the first time in months, pressing his hands to the limo window like the world outside had suddenly come alive. "Dad, look," Caleb whispered, his voice shaky but full of awe. "She's flying." Across the plaza in downtown Atlanta, a young black girl spun barefoot across the concrete, her torn hoodie flaring like a cape. Her movements were impossibly fluid, each twist and leap defying the cold wind and the indifference of the city. She moved like someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Isaiah Lennox leaned forward in the back seat of his tinted black Escalade, his $1,000 suit creased at the shoulders as he followed his son's gaze. Most days, Isaiah's attention was reserved for stocks, high-rise investments, and boardroom betrayals. But today, something else pulled at him. Something unexpected. Something real. The girl couldn't have been more than 17. Her jeans were filthy, her knees bruised, and her face, though partially obscured by a frizzed bun, radiated raw emotion. Each movement told a story of hunger, grief, resilience. People passed by without seeing her. But Isaiah saw her, and more importantly, Caleb saw her. Until the interruption came. 3 security guards stormed out of the prestigious Avalon Performing Arts Center, the kind of place that boasted about diversity while quietly locking its doors to kids like her. The biggest guard kicked over the small plastic bucket where a few coins clinked. "This isn't a shelter," he barked. "Move along." "I'm not inside your building," the girl said, breathless but defiant. "I'm on the sidewalk. That's public property." "Your presence disturbs the clientele." "I'm not disturbing anyone," she snapped, voice sharp but weary. The guard leaned down. "If I see you here again, we'll call the cops. You're lucky I don't throw you in the alley where you belong." Isaiah reached for the door handle. "Wait," Caleb said, eyes still fixed on the girl. "She's not done." The girl didn't cry. She didn't scream. She bent down, scooped up the spilled coins with slow, deliberate hands. Then she stood tall and looked the guard square in the eye. "One day," she said, low but clear, "you'll wish you treated me with respect." Then she walked, past the glass walls, past the guards, past the judgment. But before she crossed the street, her eyes met Caleb's. A moment, just a heartbeat. But something passed between them, 2 souls used to being seen for the wrong reasons. In that look, there was no pity, no shame, just understanding. Isaiah watched his son's fingers tremble as he pulled them from the window. "Do you know her?" Isaiah asked. "No," Caleb whispered, "but I think she might be the only person who's ever looked at me like I was normal." Isaiah swallowed hard. That night he couldn't stop thinking about her. Her name was unknown, her story untold. But something in the way she moved, the pain she carried in her bones, felt familiar. Isaiah had clawed his way out of the projects of Newark. He had watched doors slam in his mother's face because of her accent, her skin, her silence in courtrooms that didn't listen to women like her. But she fought, and now he fought too, just in more expensive shoes. 3 nights later, Isaiah did something he hadn't done in years. He left his office early. Caleb hadn't stopped asking about the dancing girl. So they searched. At first, they checked the train stations, then the food banks. No luck. But as the sun dipped behind the skyline, they heard music near the street mural on 5th and Ellis. There she was, spinning again, on a concrete stage painted with decades of protest and color. Isaiah parked the Escalade himself and wheeled Caleb through the small crowd. She noticed them immediately, but kept dancing. When the song ended, Caleb clapped louder than anyone. She smiled, then looked straight at Isaiah. "You the dad?" I am, he said. My son. He hasn't smiled like that in almost a year. You should take him somewhere better than this place, then, she said, nodding to the broken pavement. Maybe, Isaiah said, but he said he wanted to see you. She paused, then looked at Caleb. You okay, kid? Better now, Caleb said softly. What's your name? Isaiah asked. Naomi, she said. Naomi Grant. Isaiah extended his hand. Isaiah Lennox. Naomi's eyebrows lifted. As in Lennox Group, Lennox Tower on Peachtree. The same, she hesitated. I don't need charity. Good, Isaiah replied, because I'm not offering any, but maybe you join us for dinner? Naomi looked at him long and hard. Why? Because I think you've got something the world's been ignoring, and I'd like to stop ignoring it. That night at the Lennox estate, Naomi danced again, this time on a hardwood floor polished by decades of wealth. But she didn't lose herself. She didn't soften. She brought her street soul with her. And when Caleb stood from his chair, just for a moment, just to mirror one of her moves, the room froze. Isaiah's eyes welled. Later, over dinner, Naomi told her story. Her mother had once been a dance prodigy, accepted to Avalon's elite program. But a pregnancy at 18 erased her from the roster and the brochure photos. They called it a misalignment of values. Years later, she died of an untreated illness, too proud to ask for help. Naomi had been on her own since 13. That center? Naomi said, setting down her fork. They wouldn't even let me audition, said I didn't fit their vision. They'll regret that, Isaiah murmured. No, Naomi replied, smiling faintly. They won't, not until I make them. And in that moment, Isaiah Lennox, the billionaire, knew he wasn't the savior in this story. She was. And the miracle hadn't just been Caleb standing up. It was the spark in Naomi's eyes, the beginning of something that would burn through every wall that had ever tried to contain her. Naomi woke up disoriented, the softness of the sheets beneath her a betrayal of everything she'd grown used to. For a split second, she panicked. Where was her backpack, her shoes, her coin jar? Then the memories rushed back. The Lennox estate, Caleb's smile, the way her feet had glided across hardwood floors instead of cracked concrete. This wasn't her life. It was someone else's dream. She sat up slowly. The room was bigger than the apartment she and her mother had shared when things were still okay. High ceilings, white oak floors, a window view of manicured gardens. The scent of warm cinnamon floated in from the hallway. Someone was making breakfast. She climbed out of bed and moved to the mirror. Same girl, same tired eyes. But behind them, something flickered. Not hope, she wasn't naive, but something close. Defiance, maybe. Downstairs, Isaiah was already in the sunlit kitchen, sleeves rolled up, flipping pancakes. It wasn't a scene she ever imagined. One of the wealthiest black men in America cooking breakfast like a regular dad. You're up, he said without turning. I was about to send Caleb to wake you. I don't usually sleep past sunrise, Naomi replied. Yeah, well, you're safe now. Figured you could use it. Naomi hesitated. Safe doesn't last. Isaiah finally looked at her. Doesn't have to be that way. They ate quietly. Caleb was more talkative, describing every move from her performance the night before with pure glee. She smiled, occasionally nodding, but something tugged at her. She couldn't stay here. This wasn't her world, and she wasn't about to become someone's charity project. So, what's the plan? She asked after a while. Isaiah sipped his coffee. You tell me. You said you wanted to prove them wrong. I do. Then I'll help. Why? She challenged, eyes narrowing. Because you feel guilty. Because it makes you feel like a good person to rescue the poor girl who dances on the sidewalk? Isaiah met her stare without flinching. Number Because I see fire in you, and I've built my entire life investing in people who have that fire. Only difference is, most of them had access. You didn't. Naomi looked down at her plate. Access doesn't change the way they see me. Then we change the way you see yourself first, he said, and let the rest catch up. That afternoon, Isaiah introduced Naomi to Dr. Hallie Mendez, a former Alvin Ailey choreographer who now ran a small but elite private dance collective. Mendez wasn't warm, but she was honest. "You've got raw ability," Mendez said after watching Naomi improvise in her rehearsal studio. "But you've also got street habits, no training, no polish, just instincts. Is that a compliment? It's a problem, one I can fix if you want this badly enough." "I do." Mendez raised an eyebrow. "We'll see. Training starts tomorrow at 6. Naomi walked out lightheaded. A part of her wanted to scream in triumph, but the other part, rooted in survival, kept her grounded. This wasn't a win. Not yet. Back at the Lennox estate, a storm was quietly brewing. Isaiah's assistant, Reed, had been with him for over a decade, and Reed didn't like Naomi. "Why her?" he asked when Isaiah briefed him on sponsoring Naomi's training. "You get dozens of grant requests a week. Dancers, athletes, tech kids, all vetted, all safe bets." "I don't care about safe," Isaiah replied. "I care about real. She's unstable. She's been on the streets for years. We don't know anything about her." Isaiah turned slowly. "Neither did they know anything about me when I started. I'm not asking for your opinion, Reed. I'm telling you, she stays. She trains. End of discussion." But Reed didn't drop it. Not privately. Not quietly. Later that night, Naomi found herself locked out of her online class registration. Her scholarship application had been flagged as incomplete. The dance studio hadn't received the final payment for her training deposit. She confronted Isaiah, heart pounding. "Did you change your mind?" "No," he said, frowning. "I gave Reed all the approvals. Everything was submitted." "Well, it's not there, and I'm not crazy." Isaiah pulled out his phone, furious. After a few calls, the truth unraveled. Reed had canceled the payment, citing financial discretion. Isaiah fired him on the spot. "You didn't have to do that," Naomi said afterward, stunned. "Yes, I did. He was your guy. He was my employee. You're my investment now." Naomi stood silently for a moment. "I'm not sure how to feel about that. Don't think of it as a debt. Think of it as a bet. And what happens if I lose?" Isaiah smiled faintly. "I've never bet wrong yet." The following morning, Naomi walked into the studio at 5:45. Alone. No entourage, no rides, just grit. Dr. Mendez watched her from across the mirrored floor. "You're early," she said. "Get used to it," Naomi replied. "I've got years to catch up on." Outside the studio window, the city buzzed with indifference. Taxis honked. People rushed by. No one knew what was beginning in that small rehearsal room, but they would. Soon. Because Naomi Grant wasn't just dancing anymore. She was becoming a storm, and the world had no idea what was coming. The third week hit harder than the first. Naomi's muscles screamed with every plie. Her feet throbbed from hours and point, swollen and red, a battlefield of bruises and blood blisters hidden beneath worn-out ballet slippers. Her body had never endured this kind of discipline, but she kept showing up. Before the sun rose, after the lights dimmed, always the first in, last out. Dr. Mendez said nothing most days, just observed, corrected, and pushed her harder. On Friday, when Naomi collapsed on the studio floor after a particularly brutal session, Mendez walked over and crouched beside her. "You're still off balance on your pirouettes. Too much tension in your shoulders." "I'm trying," Naomi gasped. "I didn't say quit. I said correct." Naomi gritted her teeth. "Noted. Mendez stood. Good. Again. Later that day, Isaiah found Naomi in the back garden, her legs submerged in a bucket of ice water, eyes closed in pain and meditation. You okay? He asked, sitting beside her. I'm learning pain is just another language, she muttered. Isaiah chuckled. I used to say the same thing when I was training for my first triathlon. You'd be surprised how far your body can go once your mind decides it doesn't care. Naomi opened her eyes. Did your parents ever watch you train? Isaiah hesitated. Number my father thought anything artistic was a waste of time, and my mom was too tired from working 2 jobs to care about sports. Sounds familiar. They sat in silence for a beat before Naomi spoke again. Isaiah, can I ask you something real? Of course. Why me? Really, there are thousands of dancers with more polish, more experience. Why put your name, your money, and your son around someone like me? Isaiah didn't answer immediately. Then, slowly, he said, Because I used to be you. Maybe not the same story, but the same hunger, the same refusal to break even when the world pushes. And because Caleb saw something too, you make him laugh. And that kid doesn't laugh much since his mom passed. Naomi looked away, her throat tightening. I didn't know. I don't talk about it often. But you've brought life back into this house. That night, a letter arrived at the Lennox estate. No return address. Isaiah opened it and frowned. Inside was a single piece of paper with block letters. She's not who you think she is. There was also a printed photo, grainy and dark, of Naomi arguing with a shopkeeper. It looked aggressive, like she was stealing. The image was obviously taken months ago, back when Naomi survived by scrounging and sometimes bluffing her way through places that didn't want her. Isaiah said nothing about the letter, but he started digging. Unbeknownst to Naomi, he called in a private investigator to verify her story. Where she'd been, what she'd done, whether she was hiding anything dangerous. He didn't want to doubt her, but being burned once was enough. And with his name, his son, and now even his company's press attention involved, he couldn't take chances. Meanwhile, Naomi pushed harder in training. The showcase, a public performance hosted by Dr. Mendez for elite scouts and investors, was in 6 weeks. It would be her first time performing for an audience that could change everything. But Naomi had a problem. Someone had started following her. It began subtly. The same silver Honda parked across from the studio, always there when she arrived and still there when she left. A man in a baseball cap at the coffee shop across the street, pretending to scroll his phone but always watching. She told Mendez, who brushed it off. You're not that important yet. She told Isaiah, who told her to stay close to the estate for now. But she didn't like the feeling. So, the next morning, Naomi took Caleb with her on an impromptu trip into the city. She claimed it was to visit her old dance spot and show him where it all began. In truth, she wanted to lure the stalker out. Get a clear look. They arrived at the street corner where she used to perform for spare change. It looked smaller now, dirtier, but still familiar. Caleb danced beside her, awkward but happy, and just as she predicted, the silver Honda parked a few spaces down. The man inside stayed seated, watching. Naomi turned to Caleb. Okay, change of plans. We're gonna play a game. See that guy in the car? Yeah. I want you to start filming. Pretend it's for a TikTok. Caleb blinked, then grinned. Ooh, undercover? Exactly. He lifted his phone, angled it perfectly. Naomi danced again, not to beg, but to bait. When the man in the car realized he was being filmed, he panicked. The door flung open. He started the engine and drove off fast, tires screeching. Naomi and Caleb stood breathless. Caleb still filming. They had a face now. Later that night, Isaiah watched the video in his study, jaw tightening. It wasn't just a stalker. It was someone from his past, a disgraced former business partner, Lyle Trenton, who had sued Isaiah 5 years earlier over a failed investment. The case had been tossed out, but Lyle had sworn revenge, claiming Isaiah had stolen his ideas and ruined him. Now, he was back, and watching Naomi. Isaiah knew immediately. Lyle was trying to plant doubt, using Naomi to get to him. Twist. He was willing to exploit a homeless teenage girl to ruin a billionaire's empire. Isaiah closed his laptop and exhaled. It wasn't just about dance anymore. It was about war. Naomi didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the hallway, every distant engine down the driveway sent her nerves into a spiral. She wasn't scared for herself. She was scared for Caleb, for Isaiah, for the tiny slice of peace she had just started to believe in. She lay on the guest room couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment that man slammed his car door and peeled away. There was something in his eyes, rage, desperation, the kind that doesn't let go easy. By morning, Isaiah was already dressed in a sharp charcoal suit, pacing the veranda on the phone. "You should have told me sooner," he said sharply into the receiver. "I don't care if the restraining order expired. He's violating the terms of our settlement, and I want full surveillance on Naomi from now on. Discreet, but airtight." Naomi stepped outside, arms folded against the early chill. "So, you know him?" Isaiah turned to her, jaw tight. "Lyle Trenton. We go way back. He's the reason I don't trust easily. Why is he following me? Because he thinks you're a crack in the armor. He knows how much you mean to me now." Naomi swallowed, her chest tightening. "I didn't ask for this." "I know," he said gently, "but neither did I. That's how life works." That day, Dr. Mendez called for an early rehearsal. Her voice over the intercom was unusually sharp. When Naomi arrived, the air in the studio felt charged. There were people in the back row, observers, 2 women and a man in tailored suits. Not speaking, just watching. Mendez didn't introduce them. She simply nodded toward Naomi and clapped her hands. "Showtime. Start with the Giselle sequence. Full out." Naomi's heart pounded. She hadn't warmed up. She hadn't slept. But she stepped into the light, nodded once, and the music began. The first few bars were shaky, her footing uncertain, but then something clicked. She remembered Caleb's laugh, Isaiah's steady voice, the rhythm of pain and survival in every movement she'd earned. She danced not like a student, but like someone trying to reclaim her life. When the final note hit, Naomi collapsed to the floor, chest heaving, sweat dripping from her temples. Silence. Then one of the women stood and clapped once. "She's raw," she said, "but she's electric." Dr. Mendez nodded. "She'll be ready." The observers filed out without a word to Naomi. As she toweled off backstage, Mendez approached her quietly. "The woman in green? Madison Bellamy, director of the Bellamy Ballet Conservatory. She doesn't clap for just anyone." Naomi blinked. "Are you serious?" "She thinks you're worth mentoring, but she also asked about your past. Be ready, because if you want this, they're going to dig." Meanwhile, back at the Lennox estate, Isaiah received a package. No return address. Again. Inside was a USB stick. He plugged it in cautiously, jaw tensing. A video loaded, grainy security footage from a convenience store dated 6 months earlier. It showed Naomi standing outside the store door, begging the clerk inside for food. The man shoved her. Naomi shoved back. Then, pause, she reached into her pocket and pulled out something shiny. A pocket knife. Isaiah leaned in, his breath catching. The screen froze on Naomi holding it out defensively. Not attacking, just terrified. There was another file in the folder, an old police report. No charges pressed, Clerk later admitted to overreacting. Still, the image was damning. Threat to public, the subject line had read. Isaiah sat back in his chair, his fingers curled into fists. This was Lyle's game. Make Naomi look dangerous, unstable, turn public perception before she even had a chance. That night, Isaiah called Naomi into his study. She walked in cautiously, still in her practice sweats, hair pulled back in a frizzy bun. "I need to ask you something," he said quietly. "About this." He turned the monitor toward her. The moment she saw the footage, her face paled. "I didn't use it," she said softly. "He shoved me. I panicked. I was living behind that store for 2 weeks. That knife was all I had." Isaiah stared at her. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. "Because I knew how it would look, because no matter how hard I try to rewrite my story, there's always someone ready to drag me back." Isaiah exhaled. "I believe you." She looked up, surprised. "But believing you and protecting you aren't the same thing. Lyle's coming for all of us now. This footage is going to leak, and if it does, I need you to be ready." "For what?" "For every headline to paint you as a violent con, for people to question why I ever brought you into this house, for donors to pull out, for Caleb to get questioned at school." Naomi's hands trembled. "So, what do we do?" Isaiah leaned forward. "We go public first." "What?" "We get ahead of it. Tell your story, your way. Not the fairy tale, not the victim card. The truth, raw and full. People will listen, and the ones who matter will understand." Naomi shook her head. "You think the world wants the truth? They want spectacle. They want someone to shame. They want someone to root for, too. And you, Naomi, are worth rooting for." She stared at him, searching his face for signs of hesitation. There were none. The next morning, the New York Times published an op-ed on its digital front page. "From Homeless to Hope, the story they don't want you to know," by Naomi Brooks, accompanied by a portrait of her in dancewear, staring defiantly into the lens. Within hours, her name trended on social media. The comments were a storm, some supportive, others cruel. But one message stood out, a direct message to her inbox. "You'll never make it to the stage, and if you do, I'll be waiting. LT. She read it, then deleted it. Then she went back to the studio and danced harder than ever. The day Naomi stepped into the Bellamy Conservatory for her official audition, the sky outside Manhattan was slate gray, low with a winter storm. But inside the hallowed halls of the dance institution, everything gleamed. Polished floors, towering mirrors, and a quiet, loaded sense of judgment. She wore a simple black leotard and tights. No fancy warm-up jacket, no dramatic makeup. Just the fire in her chest. Caleb hugged her tightly before Isaiah pulled him aside, whispering a firm reminder not to distract her. "You got this, Naomi," Caleb mouthed from behind the glass. Naomi turned toward the stage. It felt like stepping onto another planet. Madison Bellamy sat in the front row with her arms folded, flanked by 2 former principal dancers from the American Ballet Theater. They didn't smile. No one did. The music started. Naomi moved. The world fell away. Every turn bled pain and promise. Every leap was a middle finger to the streets she'd once slept on. Every extension defied the past, trying to hold her down. She danced not for their approval, but for herself, for Caleb, for every girl still sleeping under cardboard tonight, believing no one sees them. When the last note faded, silence hung thick. Madison stood, her lips twitched upward slightly. Interesting. That was it. Naomi's heart pounded. Was that good? Was that bad? "You'll hear from us," Madison added flatly, then turned away. Outside the studio, Isaiah was pacing. "How'd it go?" he asked as soon as Naomi emerged. "I have no idea," she said honestly. She called it interesting. He laughed once. In Madison speak, that's a standing ovation. They were halfway down the marble steps of the conservatory when a black SUV screeched to a halt at the curb. A man in a heavy coat stepped out, holding a manila folder. Naomi froze. It was him. Lyle. Isaiah instantly stepped between them. You're violating the injunction. No, I'm here on business, Lyle said coolly, waving the folder. Public record now. Figured your little protege should see what I dug up before it airs tonight. He shoved the file into Naomi's hands. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside were old juvenile records, her mother's arrest for possession, Naomi's own detainment at 14 after stealing food, photos, mugshots, even a medical report from when she had collapsed from dehydration behind a train station at 17. How did you even get this? Naomi asked, her voice cracking. People love money, Lyle said, and skeletons. Get out of here, Isaiah growled, but Lyle wasn't done. She's not the miracle, Isaiah. She's the stain. And when this hits the news at 6, your donors will turn, and your precious boy, he'll be the punchline. Lyle turned and disappeared into the SUV, tires screeching as he left. Isaiah took the folder and looked at Naomi, searching her eyes. Do you want to go home? She shook her head, breath trembling. I want to go to the studio. That night, the headline hit every feed in the city. Billionaire's muse or menace, Naomi Brooks's troubled past unearthed. They showed the photos, cherry-picked the records, made her life a scandal. Conservative news anchors speculated about her motives. Online trolls swarmed her op-ed with venom. One viral comment read, "Rags to riches," or just another grifter with a pretty face and a pity story. Naomi stared at the screen, stunned. Isaiah stood behind her, arms folded, his face unreadable. We sue, he said coldly, for defamation, illegal record leaks, harassment. But Naomi shook her head. No, she whispered. Let them look, let them see, because I'm not hiding anymore. He looked at her, startled. She turned, fire blazing in her voice. They want to shame me? Fine. But they'll have to see the whole picture, not just the bruises. Also the fight. The next morning, Naomi showed up to rehearsal like nothing happened, chin high, eyes clear. Dr. Mendez stopped the music halfway through the warm-up. Miss Brooks, she said, voice tight, you're aware of the attention you're attracting. Naomi nodded. Mendez studied her, then said quietly, let them watch. Just make sure what they see leaves them breathless. And Naomi did. That day she danced like a storm. Meanwhile, Caleb came home from school looking shaken. What happened? Naomi asked as she took off her ballet shoes. He hesitated. Some kids were whispering, saying stuff they heard their parents talk about. That you were dangerous. Naomi's heart cracked. Caleb looked up at her. But I told them they were wrong. I told them you're the bravest person I've ever met. She hugged him tightly, tears finally breaking loose. But the moment was interrupted by Isaiah's phone ringing. He answered, listened, then froze. What is it? Naomi asked. He looked at her slowly. Bellamy wants to see you again. Tonight. Naomi blinked. Tonight? They're not waiting till next month anymore, he said. Something's shifted. At the conservatory that evening, Madison Bellamy was waiting alone in the main hall. No cameras, no press, she said immediately. I don't care about the headlines. I care about the truth. And I've seen it. Naomi swallowed hard. I have one spot left in the Bellamy International Tour, Madison continued. It's yours, if you want it. Naomi stared at her, speechless. But I need your answer now. She looked back at Isaiah, at Caleb, at everything they had risked for her. Then she turned to Madison and nodded. Yes? For the first time, Madison smiled. Then welcome to the next level. But as Naomi stepped into the empty practice room to celebrate, her phone buzzed. A message, no name, just a video. She hit play. It was shaky cell phone footage, someone filming her hugging Caleb on the sidewalk that morning. A caption over the video read, "Protect your legacy before someone else takes it." Naomi stood frozen, heart pounding. Who was watching? And why now? What she didn't know, what no one did, was that the real war was just beginning. Rain hammered down on the city like judgment, washing the streets of Manhattan in cold sheets. Naomi stood at the window of the conservatory's practice room, the soft amber glow of interior lights casting a reflection over her worried expression. In her hand was the phone, still showing the cryptic video message. Her hugging Caleb. The words, "Protect your legacy before someone else takes it." Isaiah had immediately ordered the security detail doubled. Cameras were installed at every point of entry. But Naomi wasn't worried about buildings or gates. She was worried about the unseeable, the public turning, the trust unraveling, the fear creeping into Caleb's voice. That morning, Caleb hadn't wanted to go to school. "They look at me different now," he mumbled, eyes downcast. Naomi crouched beside him, holding his chin. "Then you keep looking forward," she said softly. "That's how they lose." But inside she was unraveling. That afternoon rehearsals were intense. Madison pushed harder than ever, her gaze sharp, critical, almost cold. "Again," she snapped, "and this time make me believe the pain, not just the steps." Naomi pushed through, sweat stinging her eyes, ankle aching. Every time she stumbled, she saw that message flash in her mind. Every time she nailed a pirouette, she imagined Lyle watching, waiting. Later, as she limped into the hallway, she found Isaiah waiting with an envelope. "Someone delivered this directly to my office," he said. Naomi opened it slowly. Inside was a single photo, a grainy image of her mother, Lena Brooks, being wheeled out of a hospital, unconscious, tubes in her nose, written on the back, "She's not dead. Not yet. Want to see her again? Dance for it." Naomi's breath hitched. Her mother. She had been told Lena died 6 years ago. Drug overdose. No funeral. No goodbyes. She stared at Isaiah, her voice breaking. "I need to find her." He nodded. "Already working on it. I've called a private investigator. If she's out there, we'll find her. But I want you focused. Don't let this take you off track." "That is the track," Naomi said. "I need to know." The next day, Naomi skipped rehearsal. She took a cab across the city to the address scrawled in the corner of the photo. A rundown rehab center in the Bronx. She stood in the rain, staring at the faded sign, Briar Hill Recovery Center. Inside, the nurse at the front desk was cautious. "Lena Brooks was here, admitted 2 years ago. Checked herself out 6 months later. No forwarding info." "Do you have photos, records, anything?" The nurse frowned. "You her daughter?" Naomi hesitated, then nodded. "She talked about you," the nurse said quietly. "Every day, carried a clipping of your dance recital photo. Even showed it to the janitor like it was a Grammy." Naomi sat down hard. The nurse handed her a crumpled photo. It was her, age 13, smiling in her first tutu. "She called you her miracle." On the ride back, Naomi couldn't stop crying. It wasn't sadness, it was rage. All this time, her mother had been out there, alive, loving her, and someone had hidden it. Isaiah was waiting when she returned. "I know who leaked it," he said. Naomi froze. "It wasn't Lyle, not directly. It was Madison." Naomi staggered. "What? Why would she—" "Because she's betting against you," he said. "Her brother funds the other dancer competing for that final slot on the tour. It was a setup. She brought you in, built your hype, and waited for the perfect scandal to pull you down." Naomi sat on the edge of the couch, stunned. So I was just a pawn. Not anymore. That night, Naomi posted a video of her own. No lights, no filters, just her, sitting on the floor in her old dance shoes. They want to tell my story for me. Twist it, sell it, bury it. But here's the truth. My name is Naomi Brooks. I grew up in shelters. I danced in subway stations. I lost my mom twice. And I've been told I'm not enough since the day I started. But I'm still here, still standing, and I'm not hiding anymore. By morning, the video had over 5 million views. Naomi showed up to rehearsal with her head held high. Madison didn't say a word, but the room was different now. Eyes followed Naomi with something new. Respect. That night, Isaiah walked into Naomi's room with an update. We found her. Your mom. She's in upstate New York. Clean. Working in a flower shop. Naomi's knees buckled. She pressed her hands to her face. Isaiah sat beside her. We'll go when you're ready. Naomi nodded. After the showcase, I need to finish this first. You already did, he said softly. By surviving. But Naomi wasn't done yet, because now she wasn't just dancing for herself. She was dancing for Lena, for every girl like her, for every person told they were too broken to rise. Isaiah Bennett stood at the back of the modest community dance center, his sharp eyes focused on the girl at the center of the room. Ellie spun with a kind of untrained brilliance, her feet slightly unsure, her timing off in places. But her passion filled the space in a way no technique ever could. Beside him, Lydia stood with her arms crossed, her body still tense. Even now, she didn't trust this was real. You really meant it, she whispered. Isaiah didn't look away from Ellie. Every word. The offer to fund Ellie's dance education had come days earlier, but Lydia hadn't accepted. Not yet. Not until today. Not until she saw this space, a sanctuary Isaiah built overnight, pulling strings to reopen the very center where she once taught. Not until she realized he hadn't just offered money. He'd offered a chance to start again. Lydia's voice cracked. Why? He turned to her. Because the system failed you, and because my son is smiling again because of your daughter. As if on cue, Malik ran into the room, his laughter echoing off the wooden floors. Ellie followed close behind, barefoot and beaming, their joy so contagious it filled the room like sunlight. Then the door slammed open. 3 suited men entered, grim-faced, eyes sweeping the room with practiced suspicion. One flashed a badge. Mr. Bennett, the lead agent barked. You need to come with us. Isaiah raised an eyebrow. FBI? SEC, actually, the man corrected. There's a federal investigation into Bennett Tech Group. Allegations of insider trading, shell corporations. Malik froze. Ellie's smile vanished. Lydia stepped protectively in front of them. Isaiah stayed calm, but something shifted behind his eyes. He gave a faint smile. This is public, right? You wanted this scene. That's why you showed up here instead of my office. The lead agent didn't blink. We're executing a subpoena. You can cooperate now, or we escalate. Jordan Hale suddenly entered from the hallway, phone in hand, face grave. I just spoke with Judge Thorne. This isn't real. No active warrants. No open case. Isaiah turned slowly to the agents. You came with fake credentials? The man paused, just long enough. Lydia stepped forward, her voice like steel. You're not here for him. You're here to scare me. Isaiah nodded once. You're not SEC. You're hired muscle with printed badges. Working for Cliff Wagner, maybe. Or someone higher. Someone who didn't like that Lydia Monroe's name was about to be cleared in court. One of the agents moved toward him. Isaiah didn't flinch. But from the side door, 2 real officers stepped in, local cops, badges gleaming, guns holstered. Everyone freeze, one shouted. We got a call about a potential impersonation of federal agents. You three, hands where we can see them." The fake agents didn't even try to argue. One bolted and was taken down instantly. The others raised their hands, panic flashing across their faces. Jordan handed the cops a file. "Their IDs, company links, fake firm addresses. We traced them." Isaiah's gaze went back to Ellie and Malik, who were huddled together now, wide-eyed. He crouched to their level. "Everything's okay," he said softly. "Sometimes bad people pretend to be powerful, but truth always outs them." Malik grabbed his hand. "They tried to hurt you." "No," Isaiah said. "They tried to stop a miracle, but miracles don't scare that easy." Later that night, after the chaos cleared and the imposters were in custody, Lydia sat with Isaiah in the quiet center. The room smelled of fresh wood polish and hope. "You knew this might happen," she said. "I did," he replied. "People like me. We don't make waves without pushback. And you still helped us." He looked tired but not defeated. "Because your story's bigger than mine. Because Ellie deserves a stage. Because you deserve your name back." Lydia leaned back, exhaling. "You said once that money doesn't fix everything." "It doesn't," Isaiah said. "But standing up, even when you're scared, even when they come after you, that changes the world." She looked at him, something unreadable behind her eyes. "So what now?" Isaiah smiled faintly. "Now, we finish what we started." Because what had started as a simple moment, a homeless girl dancing in a public square, had now turned into a movement. A challenge to every lie that buried truth, to every power that thought it could crush hope. And it wasn't over yet. The media swarmed outside the courthouse as Lydia Monroe stepped through the doors, her face steady but unreadable. A wall of microphones pointed her way, every outlet in New York wanting a quote. But she kept walking. Isaiah Bennett stood waiting at the bottom of the steps, Malik by his side, and Ellie holding her mother's hand tightly. It had taken 2 weeks of hearings, a marathon of testimonies, and a courtroom packed with tension, but today, finally, the court dismissed every charge against Lydia. Not for lack of evidence, but because the truth had obliterated the lies. The footage from the dance center, the financial documents Jordan Hale uncovered, and sworn statements from former officials laid bare a conspiracy that had used Lydia as its scapegoat. In the end, those who had orchestrated the scandal, Cliff Wagner, the city council member with a private grudge, and 2 corrupt inspectors, were indicted on federal charges. Their careers shattered. Lydia exhaled, tears welling in her eyes as she looked up at the sky. She didn't cry in court. Not when they read the verdict. Not when the judge apologized on behalf of a broken system. But now, surrounded by her daughter and a man she never expected to trust, she allowed herself that one moment. "Free," she whispered. Isaiah walked over, his voice soft. "You didn't just clear your name. You exposed something bigger." She turned to him. "Then let's not stop here." That evening, Isaiah hosted a press event at the newly renamed Monroe Bennett Youth Arts Center. Hundreds gathered. Activists, donors, neighborhood families. The building, once abandoned and forgotten, now buzzed with life. Bright murals covered the walls, kids practiced ballet and hip-hop in the back studios, and a giant banner read, "Where Stories Begin Again." Lydia stood before the crowd, unsure at first, but when Ellie tugged her sleeve and whispered, "They need to hear it, Mom," she stepped forward. "When they took everything from me," Lydia began, "they thought I would disappear. But I didn't, because I had my daughter. I had strangers who became allies, and I had the truth. That's what saved me." Applause broke out, but she lifted her hand. "I'm not the only one. Right now there are other women, other families, being crushed under the weight of silence, poverty, and bias. We don't just need charity. We need accountability. We need change." She gestured to the center behind her. "This isn't just a building. It's a promise that no child should ever be told they don't belong, that no mother should ever be punished for being poor and proud. Isaiah stepped beside her, taking the mic. Let me say it plain. I may be a billionaire, but Lydia taught me what real power looks like. It's not in stock portfolios. It's in standing tall when they try to break you. It's in dancing even when the world tells you to sit down. The crowd roared. Later that night, after everyone had gone, Isaiah and Lydia sat on the rooftop with coffee and city lights below. You ever think, she said, that maybe it all had to happen like this? Isaiah nodded slowly. Sometimes the worst storms wash away the lies. She leaned back, watching Ellie and Malik dance together through the glass of the upper floor, free, wild, unafraid. Your son changed her life, he smiled. She changed mine. Silence passed between them. Then Isaiah turned to her. So what's next for Lydia Monroe? She grinned. I'm thinking public office. He raised an eyebrow. You serious? She sipped her coffee. Serious enough to scare the hell out of some people. They both laughed. And just like that, the chapter closed, not with revenge, but with restoration. Because sometimes the miracle isn't the moment you're saved. It's the moment you realize you were never broken to begin with. If this story moved you, share it. Let others know that hope is louder than hate, and truth always finds a way. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories like this one. Every click, every comment helps us keep telling the stories that matter.